Hey guys, welcome back. This is Friend. Last week we went over how to create an investment account and how to fund that account. Hopefully you've put that into practice and you were able to open an account and get started with investing. This week's topic is going to be about budgeting. Budgeting should be your best friend. I know a lot of you may not even like that word, may not even like to budget, but it is absolutely necessary that you do if you want to make financial progress in the future. So why does budgeting matter? Budgeting matters because for you to be able to make financial progress, you have to be able to save money. And you also have to be able to invest money. But how does that happen? The only way that is possible is for you to be able to live below your means. Meaning, if you're making $60,000 a year, you have to be able to live on less than $60,000. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And to be honest, it really doesn't even matter how much money you make. If you cannot manage to live below your means, you will always have financial issues. It doesn't matter if you're making $40,000 a year, $100,000 a year. If you're making $200,000 a year, however, all of your expenses amount to $220,000 a year, you will not be able to make financial progress. It's that simple. Now, how exactly are you supposed to live below your means? There are two ways that you can achieve that. One, you can make extra money and do not increase your spending as a result. Or if you cannot find ways to increase your income, to work overtime, for example, to get a second job or to get any type of secondary income, you will have to cut back on your expenses. Now, there are certain expenses that cannot be eliminated. For example, rent, mortgage, car payment, student loan payments, car insurance. These types of expenses are expenses that are considered fixed expenses, meaning it's likely to be the same amount every single month, and these must be paid. Meaning you have to pay your rent or you will be evicted. Meaning you have to pay your mortgage or the bank may foreclose on that mortgage. You have to make your car payments or else the car can be repossessed. These expenses are non-negotiable. You have to allocate a certain amount of money to cover these expenses. Now, there are other expenses that are variable expenses. They may change from month to month. For example, groceries, that changes from month to month. Other expenses that may change on a monthly basis would be, for example, gas that you put in your car or any leisure activities, any money that you spend on entertainment. So you have fixed expenses and variable expenses. These expenses are generally occurring every month. However, some variable expenses you can cut back on. So in order to create a budget and to be successful with that budget, you will have to track your expenses. There is no way around that. Meaning you will have to sit down and put down every expense that you typically have monthly. Now, there are certain ways that you can do that using certain apps. For example, the Mint app is one that I use heavily earlier on. If all of the expenses that you incur, you use a card, let's say a debit card or credit card, there are certain credit cards that automatically categorize your expenses and even provide a pie chart for you to know how much you spent on transportation, on rent, on utilities, groceries, entertainment, etc. Whether you decide to use an app or you do it manually, you have to know exactly what your expenses are on a monthly basis. That's one thing. The second thing is for you to be able to cover these expenses, you need income. So now on the other side, you have to calculate what is your net income. And the reason why I'm saying net income is because that is the money that you see after all deductions have occurred, such as federal taxes, state taxes, Medicare, health insurance, and any other deductions that occur on your paycheck. Now, it is imperative that you know exactly how much money is coming in as your net income, not your gross income, because a lot of people make that mistake. They look at their gross income and they're wondering why every month nothing seems to be left in terms of money, yet they have a good income. For example, if you make $60,000 a year, there are 12 months in a year. So 60 divided by 12 gives you $5,000. If you are planning on having expenses and in your mind you're keeping your expenses below $5,000, that is a huge mistake. Why? Because you may be paid $5,000 a month by your employer, but that is not the amount of money that you actually see. It's not the amount of money that goes to your direct deposit, that goes to your bank, or that you receive in a paper check. All deductions have been taken out. So it's a huge mistake to calculate your expenses or to base your expenses off of your gross income. It has to be your net income. Now you've come up with all of your expenses, fixed expenses and variable expenses, and on the other side you know exactly how much money is coming in every month, and that amount is your net income. The goal is to get you to live below your means so that you have a surplus, so that you have excess income or disposable income that you can either save so that you can reach a particular financial goal, or that you can invest so that you can also achieve financial goals, but for the long term. For example, your child's education or for your retirement. So it's time to get your credit card statements out. It's time to get your checking account statements out so that you can determine what these expenses are. You can do it for the last month, the last 2 months, or the last 3 months in order to get a better idea. And if you feel like you're living paycheck to paycheck, you never have any money, and you would like to be able to budget for the future and budget successfully, I promise you, you will not be able to make progress financially until you've learned that. So many people go by years, decades, or their entire lives having money issues. Why? Because they never sat down once to do it. And those of us that took the time to do that once and continually revise our budget can tell you with absolute certainty that it is much better on this side. Less stress, more simplicity when it comes to money. And that is exactly the point that I want you to get to. Money is a very emotional thing, and that's why sometimes we act irrationally around money, because we get our emotions involved. And as human beings, we are emotional beings, first of all. So sometimes it's very difficult to separate what makes sense financially and what our emotions lead us to do when it comes to money. So when it comes to money, we have to be very practical about it. We have to take action, create a budget, and follow through by revising it continuously. Now, especially if you're living paycheck to paycheck, it's important that you track every dollar. Later on, once your finances are in a much better place or you start making more money, there are different ways that people can budget. For example, the way I do it personally is as described in my Pay Yourself First video. You can take a look at that if you need more information regarding that. So once you've had all of your fixed expenses added up and you have all of your variable expenses, you know that the fixed expenses cannot be changed, but the variable expenses can be changed. What is it that you could possibly cut back on? Do you go to the movies 3 times a month and that can be reduced to 1 time a month? Do you go out to eat 6 times a month and that can be reduced to 2 times a month? Are there any memberships? Are there any subscriptions that you're paying for but you're not using those services, like a gym membership or any types of streaming services that you may have, like Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, that you're not using? Or could you spend the next 6 months without buying any clothing, any shoes? Or can you reduce the amount of time that you go to the mall, where you know you buy stuff impulsively, where you know you incur frivolous expenses? These are all things that you should seriously take into consideration if you want to cut back on expenses to have more money so that you can save for your short-term goals or invest for the long-term goals. So in essence, you will have to make certain sacrifices. We all do. Anyone who's become successful with money, anyone who does well in terms of personal finance, we all had to make certain sacrifices in terms of cutting down with expenses, services that we like to pay for. But what I am about to say is extremely important. Yes, we have to make sacrifices. However, do not make your budget so restrictive that all you're doing is paying bills and saving money. If you do that, it may work for 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, but eventually, if you do not allocate some money for entertainment, to do stuff that you actually enjoy doing, you will get to the point where you resent what you're doing. And if you resent budgeting and your budgeting is so restrictive, you will inevitably give up. And we cannot do that, because one of the main purposes of creating a budget is to allow you to make progress financially, but at the same time, allowing you to create good habits, good money habits that you will continue to use for the rest of your life. Once you've gotten your finances in order and you've done that long enough, the likelihood of you being good with your finances, the likelihood of you staying on good terms when it comes to your finances is extremely high. Now, for you to be successful when it comes to money and personal finances, you have to get used to delayed gratification. Just like you, anything that is good, anything that pleases me, anything that makes me smile, anything that temporarily uplifts me, and there's a monetary value to it, I would want it now. I would want it sooner rather than later. However, I also know that if I have that mindset, I will always be living now, not thinking about the future, not planning for the future, not planning for retirement. And the last thing you would want is to be elderly, unable to work, and barely having enough money for you to subsist. Not to live, just to subsist, just to get by. Now to recap, you have to create a budget if you truly want to make financial progress. You have to know exactly how much money is coming in every month as your net income. And you also have to know all of the expenses that you typically have on a monthly basis. And I will repeat that once more. There is no way around it. You have to be able to live on less than you make in order to make progress financially. So if you feel like you're living paycheck to paycheck, if you feel like you always have more month than you have money, if you feel like you cannot keep up with your credit card balance, if you have any additional consumer debt that you're struggling with, the only way that you can resolve that, the only way that you can address that in an effective manner is to find a way to have more money coming in as a net income than you have expenses. That way, with the surplus, you can use it to pay down debt faster, to save for an emergency fund, and eventually to start investing your money for the long term. Yes, I do understand that personal finance is difficult. Things can be tough financially, but there's only one person that can resolve that, and it's you. Unless you take action, you will continue to find yourself in a situation where you're living paycheck to paycheck. You never have enough time. You're constantly tired. You never have an emergency fund. You can never save for the future. And honestly, this is no way to live. So I urge you to take that into consideration and start creating a budget so that you can see where in your variable expenses that you can cut back, where in your miscellaneous expenses that you can cut back, where you have impulsive expenses that you can avoid in order to find disposable money so that you can reach your financial goals. Yes, this will be tough. However, the only other way that things would get easier is by increasing your income. So try to get that raise if you can. Try to work additional overtime hours, for example, to get extra money to put towards your financial goals. You can only cut back on expenses by so much. However, there's no limit on the amount of money that you can make if you go that route and try to increase your income, either by changing jobs, getting a promotion, whatever it may be. So that's it for this week. I wish you good luck. If this video was informative to you, please like, comment, share, and subscribe, because that does help me grow the channel in order to continue to spread good financial information and to get you more financially literate. And also, once you've subscribed, please hit the bell button in order to receive a notification as soon as I release a new video. I'll see you next time. Have a good one.